excited that you're here. And I was thinking back, it's been about, what, 3.5, 4 years since I met you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 3.5.
You were 26? Because you're almost 29 in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So like 25.
Yeah, and you came to Bold. And I remember Deb and Mick talking about, just because you were younger, and they said, she is such a game changer. Like, she's wise beyond her years, and you came in and you were just hungry then. And to watch the shift and the change in you in the 3.5, 4 years has been absolutely mind-blowing. So I'm going to let you actually introduce yourself and let the viewers and listeners get to know you a little bit before we dive into your topic.
Yeah. Thanks, Mary. Yeah. My name's Linley Krahel. I was born and raised in San Diego, and I work now as the director of international operations for a nonprofit called Raising a Voice that's focused on working in anti-human trafficking. Grew up in San Diego. I played water polo through college and went to Wheaton College. And while I was abroad at doing a summer abroad program in Amsterdam, was the first time that I experienced trafficking, and I experienced women being sold. And it really built this fire in me of wanting to make a difference and wanting to bring change. And I finished college with very little understanding of what I wanted to do with my life. And I ended up going on a year-long mission trip called the World Race, where you go to 11 countries in 11 months and just do ministry all over the world. And I experienced trafficking in Thailand, and it just built this fire in me even more. But while I was overseas, my parents got divorced, and I just felt a call to come home to San Diego and be with my family as things were falling apart. And I didn't know how to engage that fire for social justice and anti-trafficking in San Diego, because I was also so broken and so just needed time to heal from everything that was going on. And so I moved to San Diego, moved in with my mom, which is incredibly humbling as a 23-year-old that just graduated college. And I ended up teaching for a couple of years and joined staff with Campus Crusade for Christ, or Cru, their high school ministry, working with students in low-income Hispanic neighborhoods, running Bible studies, after-school programs, and just loving on these students while being home. And while I was home, through Mick and Deb, I met my husband, Matt, and that fire, though, was still burning inside of me. And I was just like, God, what's going on? What do I need to do? And a friend of mine from the mission trip that I did 4 years ago, he had started a nonprofit called Raising a Voice, based in Knoxville. And they had traveled all over the world and started 2 different ministries in Kenya and Argentina fighting anti-trafficking.
So as we wait for her to come back in, as I said, we gotta love technical difficulties. Linley is such a powerhouse. When I say she was 26 years old, 25 years old, ready to change this world, and the things that she's doing, you know, when you think about a dream, and actually I'm gonna pull up this poll here. When you have a dream that is knocking on your door, she'll come back in here. We all have dreams. And you know, the thing is that I remember someone told me once, you know, I always thought people knew how to dream. And someone told me, I don't know how to dream. When people are in a season where they're in such a protective mode, they don't know how to dream. So when you are in a dream that is so big for you, is it exciting? Do you not know how to dream? Are you not sure how to step into it? Do you not feel equipped? Does it seem unattainable? Did you put that dream on pause? Or are you stepping into that right now?
Am I back?
You're back. So I was just, as you paused, I started pulling in just, you know, when people dream, because that's what your thing is about. And I always thought people knew how to dream. And I realized through someone, they said, I don't know how to dream. Because they were in such a protective mode that it was just, how do I get day by day, step by step, just to protect me, to figure out what's going on now. And that blew me away. And that's what you're working with. There are people that, as you step into your dream, there are people who don't even know how to dream. and
Yeah.
you're giving them some type of a glimmer, hope, a doorway into what's possible.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I've always been a dreamer, but I also deal with a fear of going after that dream. And so I think being asked to join Raising a Voice and being asked to oversee the international side, it was like, this is exactly what I want. And this is what I want to go after. But it's like, I didn't know how, and I needed that catalyst of like feeling safe, but then also just being like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Like, who cares? And I think they offered me the job in 2017, but it wasn't going to be in 2020. And then I've met my husband, and it helped launch me where like I felt safe enough and the timing was right. Like when it came to 2020, or like this timing works so well for us that like we're going to jump and have nothing to lose and just run with it. But it's definitely scary. And I think it's hard to like really fully picture what is the dream until you like take time to really think about it. I think that was something even at Bold where you're like, what is your dream? And I was like, dang, I don't even know. Like, I'm just trying to survive my early 20s. And so it helped me kind of like zone in of like, what do I really want with my life? And I want to take it now while I'm young and have so few responsibilities.
So we missed part of what you were sharing, and you talked about it started 6 years ago, and you saw these young women, these girls, the trafficking, and so there was this fire. You meet Matt, you end
Yes.
up engaged, you end up married, and it was
Yeah.
still burning. When did you know again that you're like, man, I need to step into this?
It was 2 months after we got married. I was really struggling in my job, a job that I was really passionate about. And I think Matt and I both fell off. And I just was like, I need to do something different. There was just something where it's like, I loved what I was doing, but I was tired and I was just ready to try something new. And so we flew to Knoxville to come check out what everything was going on. And it was really cold, it was really rainy. And we met with Will and Katie, who founded Raising a Voice, for 2 days. And we left and we were like, we're not sure, but I think we need a change. And so we like went into a time of just praying and talking. But I think there was something in my gut that knew the change was coming. And it was me finally saying like, hey, we should go after this, because when else are we going to have a chance to do this? And I knew if I didn't go after it, I would regret it for the rest of my life.
So there's nothing like getting married, 2 months later, telling your husband, we need to do this. And you're stable. Like, you have jobs. He's been with his company for quite some time. So there's stability. All of your family's there. Your friends are there. And it's almost like, well, it is like having a baby without having a baby.
Yeah.
You're birthing this dream.
Yeah.
So when you talk about taking the leap requires faith, risk, and sacrifice, where did the faith come involved with this? How did it come to play?
I think a lot of what you were saying of like, we were leaving everything comfortable. We were leaving everything we had known. Matt had never lived outside of California before. And we were leaving stability financially. I wasn't getting paid initially, and I'm still like only getting paid through the grace of supporters, people that have committed to financially support me while I'm doing this. And so we knew that Matt needed to get a job in order for us to survive in a market that we don't have any connections and we don't know anyone. And I think it was stepping out saying, hey, we're going to go for this, even though there is so much unknown. And giving up a lot of stability to go after this, but just like trusting that if this is what we were called to do, God was going to provide. It was going to work out. And we didn't think we were moving until December or January of 2020 or December 2019. And Matt got a job in a month, which was unheard of for us. And we kind of had to scramble and pack up and to go, being like, well, I guess our dream started before we even thought it was going to. So let's roll. So I think, yeah, it was just like abandoning everything and trusting that this was the right path for us.
Wow. There's a quote that says, the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. And I've always thought about, it's like you have a dream, you put it out there. So it's one thing to have a dream, and it's another thing to actually step into it. But once you step into it and you're like, all right, we're going to say yes, then all of a sudden doors open, people show up, and you're like, oh, this is really happening. Like, this is really happening.
Yeah.
So not only does your husband get a job, he actually has pre-existing health issues.
Yeah.
Okay. So did he get insurance with his job?
So he did get insurance in his initial job, which was a huge blessing for us. And it kind of helped us in stability. This might be jumping a little far ahead in the story, but right at the beginning of COVID though, he lost his job. His company shut down the branch. And so he, by the grace of God, worked his butt off and got a job in 2 weeks. We did not miss a paycheck. It was incredible while everyone was losing their job. But he didn't have health insurance with that job. So now we're paying for it out of pocket, which has been a whole other, it was like we took the first leap of faith with moving. And then in March, Matt's company shut down his branch. And we had to take another leap of faith of like, okay, we're still supposed to be here. Even though things feel like they're falling, like the best way I can say it felt like the rug was pulled out from underneath us and we had to knit a whole new rug. Because it was like, we got here and now we're having to start over again in the middle of a global pandemic. It's just wild, but like totally the job is a much better fit and it's a much better fit for our family. So it's pretty wild, but yeah.
So faith comes knocking, and it's, faith isn't, I put this quote out here. It's that faith isn't, it's not having to eliminate uncertainty. So faith isn't about eliminating uncertainty. Faith works because of uncertainty. And it's courage over fear, right? And it doesn't mean, faith, you can be afraid and still have faith, but it's the willingness to step up going, man, I am like freaking out right now, but I know I'm supposed to do this. I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know what, but I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to trust. And that dream, whenever the dream is so big, I mean, we all have little dreams. We all have, well, not all, because again, I realize that some people don't know how to dream. But if people don't know how to dream, you start little, right? But this is this big one. That's just like, I'm being asked to move from everything I know to go into Knoxville, Tennessee, which I've never been, to be with people I don't know, to create something that I just have this burning desire.
Yeah.
So the risk, has there been a big reward?
I think the reward, I wouldn't say a big reward yet. I think what we're seeing is raising a voice. So in October, we opened our first ministry that works with sexually exploited women in Knoxville. And so, like I said, we have 2 overseas ministries in Kenya and Argentina that works with exploited women. And we opened our first one here. And that was a huge blessing to see that open, and it's been gaining traction. And we also own a building that are our offices. And then the downstairs has been is going to be a coffee shop that's owned by our nonprofit, where all the proceeds will go to our nonprofit. And so I entered into raising a voice at a time where they were building and they were expanding, but it was a lot of grit and it was a lot of hard work. And we've seen some huge blessings, but I think it's been these little things where I think when our coffee shop opens in a month, when we see our ministry in Knoxville really explode, when we see other programs that we have in the works developing, I think that's will be the big win. But I think right now it's been little victories. And then personally for me and Matt, it's been also little victories of just like learning to be our own, kind of feeling a freedom of being a new place, a new couple, and also just kind of learning of like, what does it look like to just like be with each other? And like, what does it look like to be all in and on this? Because it's like, we gave up everything to be here. And there's been multiple tests since we've moved of like, are you really all in on this? And are you ready to embrace the uncomfortable in a level that we didn't even expect? But it's like, but that's when the risk is worth it, when you make a new friend or when something else happens that you're just excited about.
There's a book out by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Have you ever heard of that book? It's like, it's one of those books that was written right around the Great Depression. And Napoleon Hill actually had interviewed 500 of the most successful men at that time. Just like what made them so successful. And every one of them said that it was in their greatest failure that they kept going with it. When they felt like they were at rock bottom and they kept going is where their greatest victory started. And he shared this story about this general who was going in to fight a war, and they were outnumbered. And they had to sail their boats to this place where the war was. And when they got there, he gave the orders to burn the ships. And he looked at them and he said, we're here. We are going to come out alive, or we're going to fight for our cause, basically. And they fought and they won. But when you burn your ships, just like what you and Matt did, you burn. And when you go after a dream, it's just like, man, I'm letting go of the security. I'm going to burn my boats because I'm all in. And now I really know what it means to be all in.
Yeah, I think we had to be, especially when Matt lost his job out here, it was like, are we really in Knoxville? Like, are we really committed to staying here and to fight for Matt to get another job? Maybe I'm going to have to get a job to work with the nonprofit as well to like make it work financially for us. And it's like, it's ultimately, I mean, we paused and we're like, are we sure? And then it was like, yes, like we believe in what Raising a Voice is doing and this dream so deeply that we know that we will do whatever it takes to make it work, even if we just have to scrape by, because that's how committed we had to be to stay. But I think also it like solidified our move even more. Like it solidified the decision that we made, that this was the right decision for us because we're here for a reason. Yeah. So, yeah.
So let's move into your dream, because I was sharing a little bit with you. I was so naive, and just, this is my bubble. When I heard human trafficking, I always thought it was, other countries, or that they were bringing people from other countries into the United States. And there was like sex rings and but I never ever thought of it as it truly is happening here in the United States with our own, boys and girls and women and even young men. So because you are the director of international and domestic. So why Tennessee?
Honestly, Tennessee is where Will and Katie, the founders, landed. That's where Katie grew up. And when they were looking at where to land, because to start the nonprofit, they started in January of 2015, got married in the beginning of August, and September 1, they left and traveled the world for a year, researching what human trafficking looked like all over the world. And once they did that, they came back and they said, we want to be close to family, but we want to be in a place where there isn't a lot of anti-trafficking ministries, and Knoxville is where they landed. And what's beautiful about Knoxville is that, so Knoxville is right at the intersection of two huge highways that go across the country. The 275, which goes all the way from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, and then the 40, which goes east to west. So there's actually a lot of trafficking that happens there. But I think what's so crazy about Knoxville and how this has been built so much is like, when people think of human trafficking, they think of the movie Taken. They think of these big brothels with hundreds of women drugged out of their mind. But human trafficking is that it happens, but it's actually so much smaller than that. It's women being pimped out by their boyfriends. And it starts at a young age of these women that have been sexually exploited or just exploited their whole lives and gotten into a mental state of, I'm going to be taken advantage of. I'm worth nothing. I was meeting with a woman the other day and she said to me, someone's going to force me to have sex with them, so I might as well get paid for doing it. And so we're seeing these women that have been, as a young girl, have been taken advantage of. And now they're older and maybe they're not being pimped out anymore, but selling their body is the only thing they know what to do. And in a city like Knoxville is pretty racially segregated, where our ministry is in the predominantly low income Black area. And not only is it low income area, it's a food desert. There's no grocery store. The only medical space is a Planned Parenthood. And all of the nonprofits that are here to serve these low income communities are at least 10 miles west, which is a minimum of an hour and a half to 2 hour bus ride to get there. There's so few resources in this area that a lot of people look at these women and they're like, well, they can get out. Like, they chose this life. Like, they just need to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and go. And we look in Knoxville and it's like, these people don't even have access to any resources that if they were like, hey, I want to get out of here, they can't even do that because they don't have access to any help to help them get out of there, because the resources are so far away from where the needs are. But then also, like, the community is so closed because they've been so hurt. So it's a really interesting experience for me to see of, we meet a lot of women who have been pimped out and been forced to have sex with other people. But you also see people that just, with no other resources, they don't know what else to do and they need to make a living. And so I think it's a very interesting thing of, like, this is the real side of human trafficking, where it's not always these big sex rings, but it's one person taking advantage of two other people and emotionally manipulating to the point where they'll do anything they can to make money. Which is really sad, but really it's a true picture of what's going on across the country.
Well, it goes back what you just said. That's all they know. They don't know anything else. And we started off with a dream. If that's all they know, why would they even give themselves to a dream when they don't even know how to accomplish it? They're just surviving. And then I look at what's happening right now in the world with all the riots and all the protests, and it's, raising a voice. You're giving people hope. You're giving them a different idea. You're giving them tools, but at the same time, they have to be open to it.
Yeah, and I think that's where, so our local ministry, we in April, actually, we bought a house in this area is a drop-in center. So we say it's a women's resource center. So it's a place for them to come where we can help them get their license. We have a clothes closet. We have a shower. We have a laundry. We can help them get, a lot of these women don't have a driver's license, so they don't have an identification. So they can't even get into a food bank to go get food because they don't have identification. And so, but a lot of what we've been doing these last 4 or 5 months has just been building trust in the community and going out and handing out hygiene packets. And we're going to be handing out like COVID relief packets. So like a bunch of cleaning supplies for these communities to keep them like their space clean so that they don't get sick, just to build trust so that they're like, hey, we want you to be like, we're here for your interests. We're not trying to swindle you. We're not trying to arrest you. We're not trying to get you in trouble. And I think I came in with Raising a Voice initially for the international side of it, but because of COVID, everything international is on pause. And so there's been a huge focus on the local, and it's been so beautiful to see how just being present in a neighborhood builds trust and is slowly opening doors for people to come see, oh, wow, they want to give me diapers for my baby, or they want to help me get my identification card so I can go stay in a shelter tonight. But it's a slow process that takes a lot of trust building, and you're really investing for the long haul. This isn't a quick fix, unfortunately. So, yeah.
I was listening to a speaker this morning, and his topic was Speak Life. And he was talking about the the words that we use, the words that we say to other people. And he gave, there was an analogy, actually it was a study done by IKEA, and I've never heard of this one. I've heard of other studies, but the study that IKEA did, they were teaching school kids about bullying initiatives. And so they brought in 2 plants, and they put them in the same area. So they all had the same nutrients. They had food, water, sunlight. And the only difference is the one plant, they had a tape playing. So it was words of affirmation, it was life, it was positive things. And the other plant, it was anger, it was hate, it was the negative stuff. Within 2 weeks, the plant that had the positive affirmations being played over it was vibrant, green, it was growing. Guess what happened to the other plant?
Did it die?
It was dying. It started wilting, it was turning brown. And just to know that piece, and I'm so big on speaking life anyways, what we say and what we do, we either breathe life and hope into people or we tear them down. So because that's what you're doing, you're breathing life, you're breathing trust, and these people have been hurt for so long. So I know that you have to keep things confidential, but give me an example of someone whose life that you've seen already being shifted.
I mean, I think it's like as simple as there was a girl who was living in a motel that she was using as a place to do business, and she needed her ID to qualify for food stamps. And so we helped her get her ID, which costs $8, but you need your birth certificate to get your ID, which costs another $20 that you have to go to a different office for. And my coworker did all of this, helping her get it, helped provide her food once. And she wrote to us saying, I've never had anyone help me with no strings attached. And that was such a small thing to say. And really, we didn't do much for her. We haven't seen her in a while. And so we don't know where she is exactly. We haven't been open enough to have a full success story yet. But I think that piece, it just gave her a glimmer of hope that there are people that want to help and that there are people that are looking to fight for her. And I think in today's society, we want the big wins, we want the big celebrations, we want the $1 million whatever. And in a ministry like this and working in anti-trafficking, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, it's the simple wins, and it's continuing the consistent simple wins and building to really make an impact and to not limit ourselves. Like the way that we've built Raising a Voice has been very open-handed, where if you talk to our founders, there's 85 dreams that they want to do, a bunch of businesses and different ministries, and it's wild. But it's so exciting because I think we want to step into a space where there are people in need that nobody else is stepping into. And so right now in Knoxville, it's helping these women get IDs and building trust with them and helping to make sure that they get fed and have the services that they qualify for. And hopefully through this relationship building, we can help them get out of the sex industry and into another job, into another career. But it takes time and it's such a slow build. But I think those are the little wins that we're seeing. So it's been really sweet to see that piece of it, as well as just God opening doors for the other dreams that we have, and continue to build on those dreams.
I love what you said about the little wins, because when I asked you, is the risk worth the reward? And you're like, well, when we have the coffee shop and when we do that, but that's human nature, right? We always want to go to the big piece. But it's the little tiny things that go along the way. And when my mantra over this whole COVID thing is, this is day one, which goes into what can I do today? What can I celebrate today? And those little wins, and that's, anyone who has a dream where they're discouraged, just like you said, it's the little ones. You grab a hold of that little win. You know what? I was able to do this for that person, because when we have a dream so big, there are so many mountains, there's so many valleys, there's so many hurdles, and it goes back, and I see this, it's really, life goes, oh, are you really going to be committed to that? Well, we're going to throw another hurdle at you. And when you grab a hold of those little tiny wins going, no, this is why I do what I do, which ties into sacrifice, because you've had to give up so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sacrifice has been something that rings really true for me and Matt, as well as our co-founders, because I mean, we paid so much money to move here, and we moved away from our family, and we moved away from our friends. And even with raising a voice, like the income that we have isn't very huge. And so a lot of these things, we're putting our own money into it, and we're putting in our time, and the number of walls that I've painted and the floors that I've cleaned, and just like the little things that go unseen is numerous. And I think there's been a lot of frustration and a lot of hardship that I bring home to my amazing husband, who has to deal with that. But I think what we've seen is that the sacrifice is worth the risk, because it's painful, but the reward is so much bigger. Because when you're all in, things have to go to the wayside. And, you know, for us, like, starting over has been really difficult, especially with COVID, because we haven't been able to really create a community of friends, because you can't be around other people. Like, you can't go anywhere. And so I think Matt and I have spent a lot of time by ourselves, and I'm an extreme extrovert. And so, like, I've told Matt multiple times, like, I'm bored, like, I need to do something else. But at the same time, it's been so sweet to have that time together, and just to continue to dream and put more of my energy into raising a voice and what we're building. And I think that's where it's saying, like, everything that we've done and everything that we're building is so worth that sacrifice, but it's so incredibly hard, and it can be so painful, and many, many tears have been shed just because of the difficulty of it all.
So I'm going to open up, if anyone has questions for Linley about how, you know, just questions, whatever the topic she's talking about, how you can get involved. Will you put that in the Q&A? And if you're willing to come in live, would you just put live next to it? Otherwise, I'll just read the question. And so as they're thinking about that, one thing I'd like to ask you, Linley, is when you get discouraged, what do you do to keep moving forward?
I remind myself of the vision of raising a voice, because our vision is to end human trafficking through through gospel-centered community and global transformation. And I remind myself, I go on a walk, and I remind myself of why we're doing what we're doing. Because my old boss used to say, vision leaks constantly. The vision that we cast is constantly leaking. And I need to remind myself that this is why I moved across the country. This is why I'm here, to seek the end of human trafficking through global community, or gospel community, and global transformation. And I think that encouraging and that self-talk, kind of like you were talking about with the plant, that's what pumps me back up, of like, this is why I get up and go to work every day. This is why I've made the financial sacrifice. This is why I've made the location sacrifice. It's for this. And because I believe in the people that started this in our vision. And so I think that is what I have to do to kind of refocus myself, because no matter what, there's going to be bad days, but ultimately, like, that's what's going to bring us, like, this hard work and grinding it out is what's going to bring change.
Yeah. You know, you talk about the wins and keeping that vision in front of you. I remember when we started Driven, and there were so many hurdles in the dream. You know, just because you have a dream and you step into it doesn't mean it's easy. And I remember there are multiple times I just questioned, like, am I even are we doing what we're supposed to do? And it was at the time of breaking where I'm like, I don't know, like, show me. And something would happen. It would be like the lady that would say, oh my gosh, no one's ever done this to me. It's like just a small win. So what advice would you give to people who have this dream, whether they're scared to step into it or they're stepping into it and they're not getting the results that they want right now as fast as they want? What advice could you give to them?
I would say, keep grinding, because the little things you're doing right now that nobody sees, if you keep going after it, you'll eventually get there. And I would also say be open to let your dream evolve and shift and change, because I think the dream that Raising a Voice had when we started 5 years ago is different. It's still in the vein of human trafficking, but it's different. It's shifted, but it's so much bigger and so much brighter than what it was. And so allowing that change to shift and to go with it instead of holding on to like the initial thing, because I think when we do that, that's where you get stuck, because the current is pulling you this way, but you're holding on to that rock because that's what it is, instead of allowing to let the current pull you into the bigger part, the bigger lake, where the metaphor goes, because that's where your dreams really come, is if you allow it to change and shift, keeping your main dream in mind, which is for me was working in anti-trafficking and bringing change to communities. So yeah, that's probably what I would say.
Hence COVID, right? We're hanging onto that rock and you're like, no, what just happened? So how has COVID shifted your dream? How has it helped morph and change where you're at right now?
So one of the big things I was dreaming about when moving out here is creating a missionary training program that helps people that are passionate about working in anti-trafficking to come to Knoxville and get trained in what that looks like in working in anti-trafficking, and then sending them out to work overseas with our partners. And my goal was to go on college campuses and recruit and share this dream and kind of recruit a class to start in September. And then COVID happened. But I think with all of that, it allowed me to sit and really develop what this program is going to look like more, and bringing some more ideas outside of mine, and kind of allowing that to come in and to meld. And it also allowed me just to learn more about the organization that I was working for, and learn more about Knoxville and what was going on with the racial divide and all of that. To really, I felt like the COVID has allowed me to learn more about where I live, so that I can be a better ambassador for anti-trafficking, for Knoxville, and for what it looks like to be a part of your community and working in that. And so it slowed me down a lot, which I don't like, because I like to move fast and I like to go and I like results. But I think instead it's been a time of me learning and listening and communicating to my friends and family and supporters of what's really the reality of what's going on. Because I'm from California, like I haven't experienced the South before. And so I think it's been a very like eye-opening learning opportunity, and also me being a support player and everything else that's going on with Raising a Voice. So slow down.
Slow down, Nelly, slow down. All right, I have a couple questions here. So Kate, all right, Kate, as soon as you're on, hit your mic and your video. Hi.
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 Yeah, Linley, so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
A lot of us have, passions on certain topics, and I think one of the debates is, do I start my own organization or do I join something that's already established? So for you, you had that dream and that passion of human trafficking. So how did you navigate whether to start something your own or to join somebody else's?
That is a great question. I had a huge heart for human trafficking, and I also was really fortunate to have a huge heart in what Raising a Voice was doing. And so I think for me, it was easy to jump on board with them. I'm the third staff member, so it's me and the founders, and so it was still kind of like a startup. But I think I believed in what they were doing so much and their vision so much that I was excited to come on board and kind of come under them. And I will say, from what I've heard from our founders, it's incredibly difficult to start a nonprofit and to start something. And there is so many of them that I would encourage you to look around and see if there is something that in your passion that they're doing something that you can be a part of, to at least learn what they're doing and then see, is this the avenue that I want to stay in? or do I want to branch off and do something on my own? Because I think if I'd started my own organization, I would have really floundered for a long time, because it takes so much to get the vision and to get the atmosphere, or like to get your focus and what that looks like tangibly. So I would encourage you to seek out other nonprofits first, learn from them, and then after you have that knowledge, I think you'll be better equipped to decide if you're going to stay with that or start your own thing.
Cool. Thank you.
That's a fantastic question. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks.
All right, I have another question. When you find something as important as you have to commit your life to, how do you keep your focus while overcoming your personal struggles, such as health, financial difficulties, etc.? And that's from Wendy.
Wow, this is a really big question. I think when it comes to I think there's always sacrifices. So I sacrifice my health a lot, which is a poor trait of mine that I'm really working on getting better. But I think also it's timing and it's communication if you have a spouse or your partner. And I'm just such a strong believer that if this is what you're supposed to do, as you navigate the difficulties, things will come together. And I think that sacrifices will be made throughout it. But I think it's taking it one step at a time and not letting all of those things overwhelm you. But as you slowly get into it, adjusting as you go, and adjusting of, when Matt lost his job in March, it was okay, I might have to get a job. If I get a job, how is that going to change me working with the nonprofit and figuring out how that adjustment would be there? But I was still laser focused on what I wanted to do. I would have just had to shift. And so I also don't have children. I only have a dog who's kind of needy. So I have a lot more freedom than I think a lot of other people. So I'm also speaking from that inexperience, but I think it's staying laser focused and just shifting how you need to accomplish that.
Thanks. Well, and you talk about health issues and Matt having health issues. How do you balance that?
Yeah, well, my husband is incredibly strong. And I think it's just a day at a time. My husband has, I hope he doesn't, it's not mad that I say this. My husband has epilepsy. And so it has been under control for 3 years. He has not had a seizure in 3 years, praise the Lord. But I think moving out here, he was moving away from his doctor that he's seen since he was 15 and all that kind of stuff. And Tennessee is under-resourced doctors-wise. So when we made an appointment for a neurologist in April or May, the appointment's not till November. And so it's really far away, but I think it's just stepping out in faith and trusting that he's going to be okay. And I guess I try not to be super worst case scenario. So I guess I kind of take the attitude of we'll deal with it when it comes up. So if he has a seizure, we'll deal with it. And then it might be okay, that moves the doctor up on the agenda where it's calling and burning down places until he gets an appointment. But right now we're okay. And it's just one step at a time, and just praying that he stays healthy and that there are no problems. And also just trusting that we're going to be okay and that God's going to provide for us, because otherwise I think I would melt, honestly.
When you talk about burning your boats, it wasn't just a big dream. You literally cut off every tie, everything, and it wasn't an easy transition. There's so many moving parts.
Yeah, I think I tell Matt a lot that we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we did, because I think we lose the picture of how big of a jump we made. But yes, it was having to learn everything. And I think really thrusting us of we have to be true 100% adults, which is such a millennial thing to say, but it's just we have no connections. I can't call my mom or Deb or someone to be hey, do you know of a good doctor that's this? I have to go read Yelp reviews, or I have to ask my 4 friends in Knoxville, what do you think? And different things. And like even simple things, like I didn't know where to get my hair cut, and I went somewhere and she gave me a horrible haircut. And that was like the only benefit of COVID, is that nobody had to see my horrible haircut. So it's like things like that, of like as simple as like haircuts to like doctors, like it's just a lot of trial and error, and you're like, well, hopefully this works out. And if not, you'll wear your hair in a ponytail for 3 months. So
That's
yeah.
funny. Speaking of Deb, she actually has a question for you. So Deb, I am going to bring you in.
Said she's joined.
All right, well, if she doesn't come in here just shortly, her question: where or how does leadership come into play with what you do? You are a strong leader, but what does that look like in a ministry?
Well, I'll start answering the question and then she can respond. I think in ministry, it's leading from behind a lot and pushing other people forward. I think with Raising a Voice in particular, where we are right now, like there's just 3 of us, and we have a lot of volunteers, and we have some interns this summer. And a lot of what we see is like, see me do, and then you can do. Where it's like we are on our hands and knees scrubbing the floor and cleaning, and we are out there doing yard work and all the nitty-gritty things that we have, and then also pouring into our interns and volunteers and empowering them to do the same. And even with the program that we're hoping to launch, the missionary training program, it's come, learn, empower, and then go do, empowering the next generation of anti-trafficking leaders. And so I think it's a lot right now. It's a lot of us doing and like doing that groundwork and saying, hey, come and do with us as we're building the foundation. Come and do with us as we're laying the final pieces and getting ready to actually build this house that we're building. And so it's a lot of humility, honestly, and it's a lot of just hard work and grinding and really wanting to work ourselves in a way out of a job, to bring people and empower them to go do what we're doing so that we can go do something else. And so I think that's been a huge piece of what I've been doing, is like a lot of humility and a lot of like, come and do so that you can do, and I will go do something else.
That's interesting, because a lot of times when people have such a strong dream, they don't want to let go of that dream. And you're the opposite, where you're stepping into the dream, yet you're empowering other people to be a part of your dream, and you're willing to let go so you can grow. That's huge.
Thanks. I think it's because Will, Katie, and we can see what Raising a Voice is going to be. And I think it's when you have a vision that's so big that you can't even explain how big it's going to be, that's where it's like, granted, there are days where I'm like, get out of my way. I'm going to do this better than you. Like, stop failing, because I can be perfectionist sometimes. But I think ultimately we're realizing like we need to bring as many people to come in, and ultimately to get where we want to be, it takes a village. And so bringing them in to say, hey, you're passionate about human trafficking. You're passionate about human trafficking. Let us pour into you so that we can empower you in your dream, whether that is working with us or that's going somewhere else and doing it in another city. Because my heart is that every person that works with us, when they leave, that they are advocates in anti-trafficking spaces, whether they're in Kansas City or they're in Bali, Indonesia, that even if they're not working in it, they can be an advocate for change, and they can spot what's going on and bring a change and impact someone's life that's being exploited somewhere else, because it is everywhere.
Wow. Well, and that actually tied into Deb's other question was, can you expand a little on how much human trafficking exists in the U.S.?
I mean, human trafficking is everywhere. We have what Mary was talking about in the beginning of people being brought over or someone being kidnapped and taken to another space. But human trafficking is as simple as a boyfriend pimping his girlfriend out to his friends. Mm-hmm. And I think what's difficult right now is that the technical definition of human trafficking in the US is either anyone under 18 that is is selling themselves for sex or being sold as sex is automatically trafficked. Or if they're over 18, they have to have been moved from a different place. It's a lot harder to get classified as being trafficked if you're over 18. But what we have seen, especially in a city like Knoxville, which is only 180,000 people, is it's people that get involved with the boyfriend, or it's a dad. We're at the bottom of the Appalachian Mountains, and trafficking in Appalachia is huge. So it's a family member, it's a significant other that sells their daughters, sells their girlfriends to their friends to make money. And it happens all over the place in a small scale and large scale. And it's very cultural in a lot of communities where it's like pretty normal, and kind of what I was talking about before, where these women get exploited and feel like they're worth nothing. So when they have children, they allow it to happen to their children, not because they're evil, but because they're in a space of like, I was exploited when I was a kid, you're going to be exploited too. You might as well help out and make some money.
You know, Linley, I just want to say, you know, for me, it's so hard to hear this because I have such, like, I feel like I'm so empathetic, right? And I don't know if you saw Dean's talk here a couple weeks ago, but with you being willing to come out here and share this, to me, it wakes me up. And I believe it wakes other people up going, you know what, it's here in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And what can we do to raise a voice, to give someone the ability to have a little bit of hope, to get out of the thing that they've always been in, and to think different thoughts and to create a different lifestyle. So how would people get a hold of you or get involved with what you do, or even if it's something in their neighborhood, how would they research to get involved?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Well, if you want to get connected with me directly, you can go to our website, raisingavoice.org, or you can email me, Linley, my first name, at raisingavoice.org. I'd love to answer any of your questions, share with you how you can get involved, etc. If you want to get involved in your own community, I would just simply look up like anti-trafficking ministries or organizations in your area. There's a lot more than you would think, but a lot of them are really small, like we are. And so you can help with that. Another way that you can help is figure out how to work with a lot of foster kids. A lot of the people that fall into trafficking are kids that fall through the cracks of the system. So a lot of foster kids, a lot of people in group homes, those are the kids that go missing. It's not the kid that's in private school that, you know, where they have parents that if they don't come home that are going to be worried. It's these kids that fall through the cracks. And so helping out with foster care, fostering a kid yourself, helping out in group homes. I know that can feel like such a heavy burden, but those are the at-risk kids that are the most at risk of falling into something like this. And so helping out in that space as well is really powerful. And also, if you can't find a way to help, email me. We are so connected, and our founders have traveled all over the States and all over the world. And so we can help you get connected if you don't know where to get connected in your local community.
That's awesome. I'm going to launch the last poll. It's just a feedback poll. So if you want to connect with Linley and you didn't get her email address, just connect on there, and then I'll make sure the two of you are connected. And just final thoughts from you. This is your podium. What do you wish people would know? If you can get a message out there for anyone and everyone, it could be based on even what you just shared, but what's your message?
I think it's twofold. I think one, there is human trafficking and human exploitation happening everywhere. And I think we just have to keep our eyes open and look for people that are trying to help and get involved with that, even if it's a volunteer base, even if it's financially, even if it's, you know, giving of your clothes. If you're in the Tennessee area, we take clothes donations at our drop-in center that we give out to women in need. And so I think it's looking for ways to help and know that it's about the little changes. It's about helping someone get their ID. It's about helping someone get to the grocery store. It doesn't have to be these big changes, and these little changes that you make really do affect people's lives. And I think the second is that going after your dreams are so scary and so overwhelming, yet if you go all in, the reward and your purpose is so much greater than that fear. And be strategic, think it through. Don't just like we didn't make the decision to go after this dream in a day. It was 5 years, so much planning, so much processing, but going after it and working towards it everywhere, keeping that laser vision focused on what you feel called to and what your dream is, like you will get there, and it will be the greatest and wildest and best ride of your life.
Wow. Well, Linley, I just want to say thank you for getting on here this morning or afternoon and just sharing your heart. I know I took away a ton, and I'm going to figure out how to get involved, because you just pulled on my heartstrings. Thank you for waking me up.
Yeah, of course.
And
thank you so much.
Oh, I'm honored. And I'm just so proud of you. I look at you and I know proud is probably the wrong word, but I look at you and like, you're so grown up. You were grown up back then. You've always been, I'm going to say, you've always been a badass. You've always been such a person who is willing to take on the hard stuff. And no matter how hard it is, you get back up and you look for it, you pivot, you shift, and you're called to do something big because you can handle it. And Matt, he's strong too. So I know that the both of you, you're going to do amazing things, and you're not alone. You're not alone.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So thanks again. And remember, next week we have Dante Scott, same time, and I'll send out the link. And thanks everyone for joining us. Linley, I love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great rest of your week.
You too. Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye,
you.
all.